In February of 1978, 5 young men from California set out on what should have been a simple road trip. They were friends, athletes, and sons who lived quiet, routine lives. But when they vanished into the Sierra Nevada mountains, their story became one of the strangest and most disturbing mysteries in American history. What began as a basketball game turned into a nightmarish sequence of events: a stranded car, abandoned belongings, and months later, the discovery of bodies under bizarre and unexplained circumstances. This is the haunting story of the Yuba County Five, a case often called America's Dyatlov Pass incident. The 5 friends were Gary Mathias, 25, a former Army serviceman who had been diagnosed with schizophrenia but was managing it with medication. Jack Madruga, 30, a quiet, dependable man described as deeply attached to his family. Ted Wire, 32, known as the Gentle Giant, friendly and trusting with a mild intellectual disability. Jackie Hewitt, 24, cheerful, affectionate, with an intellectual disability that made him seem younger than his age. Bill Sterling, 29, kind, compassionate, with learning difficulties. They all lived in or near Yuba County, California, and were close friends who bonded through shared routines, family support, and their love of basketball. They were often referred to as the boys by their families. On February 24th, 1978, the 5 men piled into Jack Madruga's turquoise Mercury Montego and drove to Chico, about 50 miles away, to watch a basketball game at California State University. The men were in high spirits. They were part of a local team in a program for adults with developmental disabilities, and the next day they were scheduled to play in a tournament sponsored by the Special Olympics. Each of them had been excited about it for weeks. Uniforms were laid out. Their families said they reminded everyone not to let them oversleep. Winning would have meant a trip to Los Angeles. They watched Chico State win the game, bought snacks afterward, and then began the drive home. But they never arrived. When none of the men returned that night, their families immediately knew something was wrong. These were not men who disappeared without notice. They relied on routine, on structure, and they had been eagerly anticipating their big game. By the next morning, police were notified. A massive search effort began. On February 28th, just 4 days later, a ranger found Madruga's Mercury Montego abandoned on a lonely mountain road 70 miles from Chico, near Oroville, in the Plumas National Forest. The car was stuck in snow, but not severely. 5 men could have easily pushed it free. Oddly, the car showed no damage. It had enough gas to go further, and the keys were gone, but the doors were unlocked. Inside were empty snack wrappers and programs from the basketball game. The men's neatly folded maps were still there. But the 5 friends were nowhere to be found. Why had they driven so far off their route home? The road to Oroville was in the opposite direction from Yuba City. It was a desolate, winding path into the mountains. Not somewhere anyone would have driven by accident. Searchers combed the area on foot, on horseback, and by helicopter. But heavy snowfall covered any tracks. The winter cold made survival difficult, and with each passing day, families grew more desperate. One chilling clue came from a witness, a man named Joseph Shones, who had been driving in the same area the night of February 24th, said his car became stuck in snow. As he tried to free it, he suffered a mild heart attack. From his vehicle, he claimed to see headlights, possibly from Madruga's Mercury, and later heard voices, including what sounded like a woman and a baby. But when he called out for help, the voices went silent and the lights disappeared. If Shones truly saw the men, why didn't they help him? And what was a woman and a baby doing there? To this day, that account remains one of the strangest elements of the case. Weeks passed, no sign of the men. Families held out hope, but the mountains were unforgiving. Then came spring. On June 4th, 1978, as snow melted, a group of motorcyclists stumbled upon a U.S. Forest Service trailer deep in the woods, about 20 miles from where the car had been abandoned. Inside, they found the body of Ted Wire. Ted's body was stretched out on a bed, wrapped in 8 layers of blankets, including sheets tightly tucked around him. He appeared to have survived for weeks, possibly as long as 13 weeks after the disappearance. But the most disturbing detail was this: the trailer was stocked with enough food to last all 5 men for a year. There were also heating materials, matches, and fuel. Yet none of it had been used. Ted had slowly wasted away in freezing conditions while surrounded by supplies that could have saved him. His feet were badly frostbitten. His beard had grown long, suggesting he had lived for months after going missing. His cause of death was starvation and exposure. In the following days, searchers found the remains of 3 more men along a remote road leading back toward the car. Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling were found together about 11 miles from the car. They appeared to have died from exposure. Jackie Hewitt was found slightly farther away, his remains scattered by animals. Only Gary Mathias was never found. To this day, his body has never been recovered. All that was discovered were his sneakers inside the trailer, suggesting he too may have been there at some point. The discoveries only deepened the mystery. Why had the men driven so far off course? Why abandon the car when it could have been freed with a little effort? Why didn't they use the trailer's abundant food and heating supplies to survive? Who wrapped Ted so carefully in blankets? Was he being cared for by one of the others before they perished? And what happened to Gary Mathias, the one man never found? The families were tormented. Gary's stepfather said, "We know good and well somebody made them do it. He would never have gone up there on his own." Over the years, several theories have emerged. 1. Disorientation and fear. Some suggest the men became lost, panicked, and walked deeper into the wilderness. Their intellectual disabilities and Gary's mental illness may have contributed to poor decision-making. 2. External threat. Others believe they were chased or threatened by someone, which explains the abandoned car and their trek into the forest. 3. Accident and survival attempt. The men may have split up, some dying of exposure along the way while others reached the trailer, but lacked the knowledge to use its supplies effectively. 4. Gary Mathias' role. With Gary missing, some suspect he may have survived longer, or even been responsible in some way. But without evidence, this remains speculation. For the families, the pain never ended. The Yuba County Five were not thrill-seekers or reckless adventurers. They were ordinary men whose lives ended in extraordinary mystery. Decades later, their case still haunts investigators. The Sierra Nevada mountains hold their secrets tightly, and perhaps the most chilling thought of all is that somewhere, out there in the wilderness, lies the missing piece. The truth about what really happened to Gary Mathias and his 4 friends that cold February night. A basketball game, a drive home, and 5 friends who vanished into the mountains. What happened between that gym in Chico and the lonely forest where their bodies were found? The truth may never be known. But the story of the Yuba County Five reminds us that sometimes the most haunting destinations are not exotic beaches or faraway lands, but the places we think we know. Places where a simple wrong turn can lead to tragedy and mystery that last forever. This has been Deadly Destinations. Until next time, stay safe. And remember, some mysteries never die.